When you stop speaking to a woman, when you go quiet after she's gotten used to your presence, your steadiness, your attention, it creates something powerful. It interrupts her internal rhythm. Suddenly, what she once assumed would always be there is no longer promised. And that causes a change, not just in her thinking, but also in her emotions. Most men don't recognize that silence is one of the most powerful tools they have when it comes to gaining back emotional influence. Words are expected, reactions are easy, but silence is rare, and it speaks loudly in its own way. When you go quiet on her, the first thing that happens is she begins to wonder, not in a light way, but deeply. Her mind starts going into overdrive because people are hooked on patterns, and when you break one, it leaves behind a gap. If she was used to your good morning messages, your fast replies, your emotional presence, your space in her world, and then suddenly all that disappears, she notices that absence like a missing piece. And what follows is emotional tension. It starts with confusion and can slowly grow into obsession. She begins asking herself things like, why isn't he texting? Did something happen? Has he lost interest? Is he talking to someone else? The irony is, while she may have acted distant or cold before, or even uninterested, the moment you take your energy back, the balance of the connection shifts. And it's not because you pushed, it's because you let go, because you stopped pursuing. You let her feel what her life is like without your energy in it. That's when the real psychological effect begins. You need to realize that women process things through emotions. They don't only react to your words, they respond to consistency, presence, and energy. When you pull back, your presence is often more noticeable in its absence than it ever was when you were constantly available. Your silence begins to echo in the places where your voice and words once existed. If you've been a man who gave real emotional value, if you've been solid, loyal, and dependable, then your absence won't just be seen, it will be felt. But this doesn't always mean she'll instantly reach out or beg for you to come back. For some women, especially those who are prideful or emotionally young, their reaction might be subtle, but trust, it's there. Her curiosity will slowly grow. First it's a thought, then a repetitive cycle of overthinking. Then she starts watching your social media, checking your stories, trying to read between the lines. She may not admit it. She might even act unbothered, but inside, that uncomfortable feeling begins to rise. Because you've done what many men struggle to do. You've stopped allowing her access to you. That kind of power isn't something she expected, especially if she thought you were emotionally wrapped around her finger. But here's the important part. This only works if your silence comes from strength. If you go silent hoping she'll come running back, that's weakness and she'll sense it. But if your silence comes from a place of peace, if you've reached a point where your mental well-being matters more than confusion, then your silence becomes something different. It becomes a mirror she's forced to face. And in that reflection, she may finally see the truth she's been avoiding. She'll remember the times she overlooked your efforts, the moments she acted like your presence didn't matter. And now, without you around, those memories hit different. That same attention she used to brush off is now something she finds herself missing. Because the longer you stay quiet, the more your absence pushes her to face the results of her behavior. That's when she starts realizing that you weren't emotionally needy. You were giving because you wanted to. You were present by choice, not by desperation. And now that you've stepped back, she has no idea if you've moved on, if you're done, or if someone else is now receiving what she once had. That uncertainty begins to grow. Through your silence, you take back control. You don't need to argue or explain. You simply let go. And that speaks louder than anything you could have said. You show that your emotional investment has limits, that you're not the type of man to wait around for someone to realize your worth. You prove that above all, you're in charge of your own peace. What's amazing is this shift doesn't need arguments or drama. It just takes stillness, distance, and discipline. Because the real strength isn't in what you tell her, it's in what you choose not to say anymore. After you stop reaching out, when the silence has had time to settle, she begins to test you. These tests aren't always obvious. Sometimes they're quiet, planned, and full of emotion. She wants to know if she still holds any emotional influence over you. What she's really trying to figure out is, Does he still care? Can I still pull at his feelings? This is where many men fall short. They see the test as a sign that she's serious, so they quickly end their silence. They take the bait. Maybe it's her watching your story, posting things aimed at you, or liking an old picture by accident, or even sending a short message like, "Hey, just thinking of you." But here's the truth. Those aren't always signs she wants to come back. Often, they're little emotional hooks. She's not necessarily trying to rebuild something. She's just checking to see if she still matters to you. If she pushed you away, ignored you, or disrespected you in the past, and you still answer eagerly, then she wins. Not because she wants to be with you, but because her ego is satisfied. You have to see this clearly. It's not about bitterness. It's about control and validation. For some women, especially those who haven't matured emotionally, attention equals importance. So when you go quiet, they lose that feedback, and they don't like it. That's why they throw out small tests, social media posts aimed at you, vague messages, emotional bait like, "Heard this song and it reminded me of you," or "Do you still have my hoodie?" If you respond right away, trying to get back to how things were, you're giving your power away. Once she knows she can pull you back with just a little effort, there's no mystery left. The chase ends, the silence is broken, and so is the upper hand you had gained. But if you either don't reply or you respond calmly and without emotion, everything changes. You show her that the old tricks don't work anymore, that you've grown, that her moves no longer affect your mood, and that forces her to face a difficult truth. She doesn't hold the same access to you anymore. Some men are afraid that not reacting will push her away. But if all she wanted was to test you, then her leaving isn't a loss, it's a blessing. And if her reach out is truly from the heart, if she really thought about things during your silence, then she'll return in a genuine way, not with games, but with honesty. That's why your silence has to be strong. It can't be a tactic. It has to come from a real place inside you. It's not about trying to trick her. It's about being unshakable. When she tests you and tries to pull your emotions, your job is to stay balanced. You don't chase, you don't over-explain, you don't look for approval through your actions. Because the second you react with emotion, she knows she still has control. And that's not where a strong man lives. Let her test. Let her wonder. Let her try every move she used to use. But don't flinch. Don't go backwards. Don't fall into the old roles of convincing or pleasing. Your silence says it all. Your distance is your strength. If she wants the version of you she once had, she needs to come back differently. No tricks, no half-hearted efforts, only honesty and true emotion. Most women think men will break during no contact. They expect men to cave. But when you don't, when you keep your composure and pass every emotional test without even blinking, you become the one she didn't see coming, the one she can't predict. The one she starts thinking about far more than she ever thought she would. Stay steady with no contact. After the initial confusion and emotional tests, something deeper begins to happen. She starts thinking about her own behavior and the part she played in the breakdown of the relationship. At first it's not clear. Her pride, her ego, and her defensive instincts all try to stop her from looking inside herself. But as the days turn into weeks and your absence grows louder than your words ever were, that internal wall begins to crack. Human nature moves in cycles. When someone loses access to something important, they often go through stages of denial, frustration, curiosity, and finally, reflection. Your silence doesn't just push distance between you two. It creates space for her to think deeply. In that quiet space, she begins to replay the moments she used to ignore, the things you said, the boundaries you tried to set, the emotional energy you gave freely, the respect you asked for. All of it slowly comes back. This time, she doesn't hear it through the same filter of pride. She hears it looking back, and that's where real understanding begins. Without you always engaging, explaining, defending yourself, or trying to fix things, there's no one for her to argue with. There's no conversation to control, no emotional leash to pull. She's left alone with her own thoughts. If you were a man of true value, calm, grounded, emotionally steady, then your absence will feel very different from how she feels now. Most people don't realize what they had until it's gone, until the supply they took for granted is cut off. At this point, she starts asking herself some hard questions. Was I too cold? Did I push him too far? Was I disrespectful? Did I assume he'd always be there? These questions aren't just quick thoughts. They linger. They come up during quiet nights, during random songs, or when she scrolls through old messages or photos. The moments that once felt like power plays now start to feel like regret. The longer your silence lasts, the more time she has to examine her own patterns. Maybe she remembers dismissing your needs, brushing off your concerns, or testing your patience. Maybe she begins to see how often you tried to keep things balanced, how often you tried to bring peace, or how much effort you put in that she never noticed. And here's the thing, when a man walks away without begging, pleading, or yelling, it forces a woman to consider that maybe she was the problem. And it's a humbling experience because your silence isn't punishment, it's a mirror. It shows her something she likely didn't expect, that you weren't dependent on her, that you were choosing her, investing in her, and now you've chosen yourself instead. A change in view is powerful. It's often the turning point where regret starts to replace indifference. Depending on her maturity, this reflection will show in different ways. Some women will sit quietly with these thoughts, hoping you'll come back so they can fix things. Others will try to sneak back into your life, maybe not with an apology, but with emotional hints, nostalgic messages, or reminders of shared memories. Then there are those who might stay silent, waiting to see if you return first. But even in silence, they're thinking, reflecting, remembering. What's critical here is that you don't break your stance. Don't interrupt her reflection by rushing back. Don't send a message just because you feel emotional. You're not trying to speed up her process. You're letting her face the truth she's avoided for so long, that her actions, words, or lack of effort had real consequences. And that consequence is losing access to you. This reflection starts to reset the emotional scale. It puts her in a place where she begins to value you from awareness, not convenience. She thinks about what it was like when she knew you were there and how different it feels now that you're gone. That contrast plants the seeds of true regret, and regret is often what leads to real change. Not every woman will reach out. Not every woman will admit she was wrong, but many will feel it deeply. Your silence makes them look in the mirror, to evaluate, to consider. And sometimes the weight of their own reflection is heavier than any words you could have said. As time goes on in your silence, something else starts to stir inside her. She begins comparing every interaction with other men to the connection she had with you. This is one of the quiet but powerful effects of your absence. When you were around, always present, making efforts, giving emotional support, she may have taken it for granted. It was familiar, maybe even expected. But now that you're gone, the difference between what she had and what she's experiencing now becomes clear. She might go out, socialize, maybe even start new conversations or relationships. At first, she might feel strong or relieved, but those feelings are shallow. Once the distraction fades, she notices something deeper, a void. And that emptiness isn't just about missing someone to talk to or hang out with. It's about missing the energy, the depth, and the emotional calm you brought, things others can't match. Other men may say the right things, but it doesn't feel the same. They might try to impress her with confidence, charm, or attention, but she starts to see the difference between someone who truly saw her, supported her, and challenged her, and someone who is just trying to win her over. That difference grows louder over time. She remembers how you handled problems, how you stayed steady through emotional storms, how you didn't try to control her, but also didn't let her walk all over you. These moments start replaying in her mind, not as random memories, but as important reminders. Here, a deeper kind of emotional regret begins to grow. She realizes what she thought was normal between you two was actually rare, because emotional steadiness, masculine strength, calm presence, and real care aren't as common as she thought. Every new interaction shows her just how different you were. That's the power of your silence. It becomes a mirror, not just for her past actions, but for the reality of what she lost. The longer this comparison goes on, the more likely she is to feel let down by the dating world or the men she thought were better or more exciting. Because once a woman meets a man of real worth, one who knows his value, who doesn't chase approval, who brings emotional clarity, every boy pretending to be a man stands out as fake. And when she sees that, it chips away at the pride that made her think she was better off without you. And here's the thing, it's not just about big romantic gestures or grand moments. She starts missing the little things, how you made her laugh, how you understood her without long explanations, how your energy felt safe and steady. She begins to understand that connection isn't about quantity, it's about quality, and emotional quality can't be replaced by a new face or short-term attention. This doesn't mean she'll rush back the moment she feels the difference. Sometimes her pride will still try to protect her from admitting the truth. She might tell herself you're just another guy, that she's better off now, but that voice grows weaker over time. The proof around her keeps showing the truth. What she had with you wasn't ordinary. If she does come back, it usually won't be with big declarations. At first, it might be subtle, liking your posts, watching your stories, sending a random message. These aren't random acts. They are small tests to see if you're still emotionally available, if she can still reach the version of you that gave freely. But the man you are now, the one who kept silence, who didn't break, who let her go, knows that not all access is deserved anymore. So if she returns, it must be with clarity and humility, not just curiosity or comfort seeking. She has to come back recognizing your value, not just missing the feeling. And if she never comes back, that's still a win, because your silence made space for clarity. You stopped overgiving, you stopped proving your worth, and you gave her the chance to truly feel what life is like without you. That speaks louder than any words ever could. When a man stops talking to a woman, especially after a time of emotional connection, shared experiences and closeness, it doesn't just end communication. It causes a psychological shift that goes much deeper than most people realize. One of the deepest things that begins to unfold is an identity crisis, especially if she was emotionally depending on your presence, attention, and validation. When you were around, even if the relationship had tension or arguments, your energy still acted as a stabilizer. Whether she admitted it or not, your presence grounded her. She could count on your reactions, your support, your forgiveness, or even your attention at times when she didn't really deserve it. But once that presence vanishes and silence takes over, she is forced to face herself. And for many, that can be frightening. What many people don't understand is that we all build identities in relationships. She had a certain identity when she was with you. Maybe she saw herself as wanted, pursued, or special. Maybe she liked the feeling of knowing you were always emotionally available. But when that energy is suddenly taken away, that version of herself starts to break down. It's not just about missing you. It's about missing who she was when she was with you. And then this can cause feelings of emptiness and restlessness. She might try to keep busy with other people, social media, new hobbies, or even unhealthy ways to cope, but none of it really fills the gap. That's because distraction does not fix the real problem. It only delays having to face it. And eventually, when all the noise fades and she's left alone with her thoughts, she begins to question not only what happened, but who she is without you, reflecting back the version of her that made her feel important. Time works like peeling back layers. As days and weeks pass, the ego defenses she used to justify her actions start to wear away. The story she told herself, that she didn't need you, that she could do better, that you were too much, too emotional, or too difficult, starts to sound empty. In its place, the truth starts to appear. Maybe she wasn't ready. Maybe she was selfish. Maybe she let go of something that could have helped her grow instead of just feeding her pride. That's the beauty and the harshness of no contact. It shows what the ego works so hard to hide. If you are a man who brought emotional strength, honesty, and clarity into the relationship, your absence becomes obvious. Her world no longer feels steady because she's no longer getting the validation she secretly depended on. That emptiness begins to feel like a missing piece of herself, and she starts wondering, what if I pushed away the one person who truly cared? What is very important during this time is that you, as the man, stay firm in your silence. The moment you rush back to check if she's okay, to explain yourself again, you stop the process. You steal from her the very change your silence is meant to start. A woman can't reach the depth of her emotional realization if she's always being rescued from it. Let her sit with it. Let her wrestle with the truth. Let her feel what it's like to lose a man who brought real depth, not just attention. Here's the deeper truth. This identity unraveling is not just painful, it's necessary. Sometimes a woman has to lose you to wake up to the part of herself that needed to grow. Your silence is not just a boundary, it's a mirror. It reflects everything she didn't want to see while you were still talking. Everything she ignored when you tried to explain. The longer you stay silent, the clearer that mirror becomes. Not every woman will face this directly. Some will run away from it. Some will hold tighter to their pride. But others will slowly, quietly, and inside begin to change. They may not return with a big apology. They may not even know how to explain it. But that internal breaking down of the ego leads to something much more real. A woman who finally understands the difference between a man who truly saw her and the ones who never will. And it all starts with silence, the kind that speaks louder than anything you could say. One of the most underestimated effects of walking away and going fully silent is how it forces her to finally feel the weight of her own choices. At first she might feel strong or relieved. She might even convince herself that silence is her win, that your pulling away is a sign of weakness or surrender. But as time moves on, and you keep standing strong in your choice, not to reach out, not to chase, not to give in to emotional pressure, the story she told herself starts to fall apart. The story that you'll come back, that you need her, that you can't handle being apart, begins to break down. It's replaced by something far more real and harder to face: doubt. In many relationships where a woman is used to emotional control, whether through attention, manipulation, or the constant reassurance of being chased, she becomes dependent on the idea that you'll always return. That belief becomes her emotional safety net. But when you take that safety net away by staying silent, she no longer stands on steady ground. Suddenly, the power balance shifts. She understands that your silence isn't temporary. It's not a strategy. It's not a game. It's a consequence. And that consequence cuts deeper the longer she sits with it. Days turn into weeks, and each day without your voice, without your energy, without your presence sends a stronger message than anything you ever said when you were still trying to fix things. That silence, especially coming from a man who once cared deeply, becomes a powerful reminder. It reminds her that the choices she made, whether it was taking you for granted, testing your limits, playing with your emotions, or simply not valuing what you brought, had real and lasting effects. That's when the emotional discomfort truly begins. At first, it's just restlessness. She checks her phone more often. She reads old messages again. She feels nostalgic about the good times, times she used to think were ordinary. Then it goes deeper. She questions her own behavior. She wonders why you haven't broken yet. Why haven't you called? Why didn't you send a just checking in message like before? With every unanswered question, she's left alone with herself. Her ego deflates. Her pride slowly fades. What most men don't realize is that silence, when paired with dignity and discipline, is not passive. It's very active. It's doing something. It's saying something deeper than words ever could. It says, I am no longer willing to be part of a connection that costs me my peace. That message eventually hits her hard because deep inside she knows you were the one who made an effort. You were the one who stayed steady when she was emotional. You were the one who kept coming back even when it was hard. But now she sees the version of you that respects himself more than he wants her. And that version is powerful. That version is the one she didn't think existed. That version is what causes regret, longing, and often real change. She might start copying your silence at first just to test you. She might act like she's moved on, like she's happy, calm, and thriving. But remember, social media is not a true picture of her feelings. It's a carefully chosen illusion. The real story happens when she's alone, when no one is watching, when she wonders if she'll ever find another man who carried himself like you, a man who gave with heart but had the strength to walk away when disrespected. Is the most important part. You must never stop this process. The moment you break your silence for anything less than real responsibility and humility, you strengthen her original belief that you'll always come back. You give her the emotional safety net again, and that stops the transformation right away. Let her sit with it. Let her feel it. Let her break, not because you want her to hurt, but because she needs to understand the cost of her own action. Some lessons can only be learned through absence. Some truths can only grow in silence. So you stay silent, not to punish, not to control, but to protect your worth and allow the emotional truth to come up. Because if she ever does return, It needs to be from a place of clarity, not control. And if she doesn't, you still win, because you walked away from someone who wasn't ready to accept the kind of love you were ready to give.